Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new edition of our Open Innovation Thursdays. My name is Marisol Menendez, and I'm very happy and proud to keep going with these weekly interviews with each of the authors of the chapters of the Oxford Handbook of Open Innovation. I'm an open innovation practitioner and enthusiast, and I do that daily in my daily life, in my own company, Vilacatu, and my ecosystem, my female leaders ecosystem called WITH. And really, I breathe and do open innovation all my life. So it's a joy and a privilege for me to have these weekly discussions and conversations and get to know such interesting people like our guests today, Melissa Appleyard and Herb Velazquez. Welcome, everyone. How are you today?
It's great.
Very well. Thank you so much for having us. We're excited to talk about Chapter 38.
Thank you very much, Melissa and Herb. We always like to dedicate a little bit of time to get to know the people who are behind the chapter. So would you please introduce yourselves, tell what do you do, where are you connecting from, and what's your area of work? Melissa,
Great.
go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, I'll start and then I'll pass it to Herb. That I'm one of the Ames professors at Portland State University in the management of innovation and technology. And for the past, I'm going to date myself, 35 years, I've been researching cooperative research and development, mainly in the semiconductor industry, but also in open source software and in other open environments like blockchain as well. And then one of my colleagues at work, Albrecht Enders, introduced me to Herb. And it's just been such a pleasure and honor to be able to work with Herb and Albrecht on our work relating to the merging of open innovation and design thinking. So with that, I'll pass it to Herb because he's the expert designer in this whole project that we published 3 papers from this big project.
Herb,
Thanks,
please.
Melissa. You're very kind. Herb Velazquez. I'm a professor of practice at Georgia Institute of Technology in Atlanta, Georgia. And I've got a fairly long career in industrial design starting at General Electric, then Siemens. And basically the work that we did at Siemens was so unique and so different that it kind of led to continued conversations and a number of different papers that Melissa and I had an opportunity to work on to share the story of the innovation and the collaboration and open innovation that was done at Siemens that helped Siemens kind of regain its foothold in the marketplace with a market leading product that was market leading for over 15 years. And currently I teach at Georgia Tech industrial design in multiple grade levels, and super delighted to be able to work with Melissa. She's extremely smart, intelligent, brilliant when it comes to writing and thinking about things. So in any case, the chapter 38, I think, does capture a lot of what went on in the Siemens project.
Perfect. So we are getting ready to open the chapter. Chapter 38 is called Customer-Centric Open Innovation Guided by Design Strategy. It was authored by Melissa Appleyard and Herb Velazquez, so both are authors today with us. Chapter 38 is part of the section titled Open Innovation and Theory. It's the part 7 of the book. It's so interesting, this section, because once we began with the basics of open innovation and ecosystem, we've been moving forward innovation through firms and collaboration with corporations, and now we are revisiting the theory that is behind that. But so interesting that we are getting into customer-centric open innovation guided by design strategy, which by definition is also very practical. No? So I'm very curious, I'm very eager to open the discussion. My first question is, why or how come did you decide to write this chapter, or how this chapter came to be and be part of this marvelous book?
Yes. Well, let me jump in and then I'll pass to Herb if he has any additions. So I've been very fortunate to be a longtime colleague of Henry Chesbrough. And he and I were in graduate school together at UC Berkeley. I was in the econ department working on my PhD, and he was in the Haas School of Business. And we overlapped in some classes, and we're both really interested in knowledge flows, and mine particularly in the semiconductor industry. And then he really dove in thinking about outside in and inside out open innovation. And this chapter, we're so excited to have a really solid case study to illustrate some of the theoretical constructs that really overlap with open innovation, as well as have this living laboratory of how open innovation works within a huge global leading company like Siemens. And so it was so enjoyable to be able to work with Herb and our other colleague, Albrecht Enders, to tell the story and really flesh out some of the theoretical constructs like absorptive capacity. How do you absorb knowledge from outside in? And as well as the voice of the customer. What does that look like when you commit over a year and a half to really understanding the 61 customers that touch your equipment? And that's what we're able to sort of demonstrate in this case study is open innovation in practice and how it's a natural interlacing with design thinking.
Anything to add, Herb?
Well, I think she said it all. The only thing I would say is that prior to us starting on this project at Siemens, it was pretty close to, the opposite of open innovation, where a lot of the inputs just came mostly from internal sources. So this was quite a divergence to get into an open innovation frame of mind for this project, which was absolutely needed to achieve success.
And this is one of the reasons that make me find so interesting this handbook, because at the end we are somehow extending the frontiers of what we usually research or study around open innovation. No? So let's dig into the chapter. What are the main learnings and the main conclusions that we can take out from it? What are
I'm
your
going to just be
discoveries? Yeah.
I'm going to be very brief because I really enjoy hearing Herb talk about it's one of the most illustrious and well-known case studies in Siemens because it was so profoundly effective when they entered the market. So what I personally really take away from it is the commitment of the team to not only understand the customer, but role play the customer and get so deep inside the customer's mind and surface not only articulated needs, but also a lot of sort of tacit or hidden needs that would be realized, say, 10 years out. And their ability to create this revolutionary platform in nuclear imaging and bring it to market and dominate the market for 15, 20 years after almost being shuttered because they were on the brink of bankruptcy, it just showed me how the power of open innovation, like Herb said, really allowing ideas, particularly from the customers that expanded from like 3 customers to 61 customers, really understanding their needs today and tomorrow. And then no one could touch them after this platform. It did take 3.5 years, but once the market accepted it immediately, and even Toshiba, I believe, OEM'd it, so they knew they couldn't catch up because they have this whole timeline of adding in new features every 6 months. And we call it creative forbearance, in that they were able to be patient to add in new features until the technologies became available. So sorry, that was longer than just a short brief thing, but Herb, I'll pass it to you.
Well,
That
that's
happens
really
when
good.
we are passionate. Go
Yeah.
ahead. Herb.
Well, I think there are a number of challenges to even get going because at this particular time, Siemens was very much engineering driven and very siloed within its various departments. So when this was all initiated, there was a pretty good effort to try to unlearn all of the things that had been in practice for all these years. And as a result of this open innovation, it really helped with the unlearning and and just creating so much dialogue between different departments that never existed before. And as a result of that, uh, all of the people on the team, which didn't really know each other prior to this, became good friends and really understood quite deeply all of the requirements that customers were really asking for and how to implement those. So a lot of the communication got embedded viscerally, within the hearts and minds of this core team. And I think that's what also helped with this whole creative process, as we're always thinking about the project and different ways in which we can bring new solutions to bear in this work. So it was pretty amazing.
May I add just a couple things? So the open innovation was both cross-functional, like Herb said, from the outset. They had this cross-functional team, across engineering, marketing, and the sales and manufacturing. So they were all on this core team. So it was open innovation in really spanning the boundaries of the functions within the firm, as well as this outside in absorbing a lot of feedback and internalizing it, like Herb said, viscerally. The other thing that was just very novel was that Herb, being the lead designer on the project, he was brought in at the very beginning. And that set the tone for undertaking this customer-centric design thinking, needs-based approach, where instead of having the industrial designer at the end kind of like figure out colors and textures of the equipment, that was really not the case here. The case here was Herb was one of the leaders of the whole initiative from the outset. So it really did set a tone. We are doing things differently. And it was sort of the last ditch effort before as far as I understand, before the division, the Gamma Sonics division was about to be shuttered. And so that it really did save the division, and not only save it, but really the growth from, say, 10-15% market share to 30 to above that, with Toshiba figuring in. It is just an astounding turnaround. And it just had these very novel features. So I love that unlearning, because we don't talk enough about that in like the absorptive capacity literature, when you are trying to like be enough aware of people's language such that you can understand it. But this unlearning of the whole team was astounding, in that it opened up their mind to be able to accept information not only cross-functionally on the team, but also from the outside in. One other thing I will add, it was a skunks work where they had a war room, and that was where they worked, and they didn't have other obligations at that time. They were focused solely on this effort.
So interesting.
And just
Sorry, go
just to
ahead,
add
Herb.
on what Melissa just said, is that we don't know what would have happened to Siemens if they had not done this, but it would not have been good because they were losing a lot of money. And fortunately, that question never got answered because it got put on the right track.
Of course, and I like very much this point that you make, Melissa, that absorptive capacity, which is this concept of how fast can we get this outside-in knowledge, and integrate it in our organization, which is a very complex concept, but it's very practical, in fact, for organizations. But it also means that you need to let go old knowledge, and so this unlearning
Yes.
process, I think, is one of the main takeouts, and it's very interesting how we integrate it as practitioners, and how we can also integrate it as part of the open innovation topics and discussions. So interesting. Well, time flies, and without realizing it, we are almost getting to the end of our chapter, our conversation today. So may I just ask for one final idea, call to action? What do you want our listeners and viewers to take with them? Melissa, go
Yes.
ahead.
Well, I'll start and then pass it on. That this chapter, we had fun in this chapter naming the different stages of the innovation process. So I think readers would really enjoy We had fun with the alliteration. So there are 5 main steps. We call them engaged empathy, vanguard visioning, targeted triage, democratized design, and sustained superiority. So I think people maybe will get a little chuckle as they're trying to figure out what these all mean. And we have a diagram about the process, and we have sort of on the vertical axis the level of outside in open innovation, and then on the horizontal what the design strategy is between discovery, definition, design, and delivery. And so I think readers might enjoy seeing how the level of open innovation fluctuated across the design strategy.
And for you, Herb?
Well, I would say that one thing Melissa touched on is that industrial design on this project was brought in right at the very beginning. And that was a very unique situation, probably never had happened before. But in hindsight, now, years later, as we talk about it, people tell me that the fact that industrial design was a part of this initial core team, that really made a difference in the outcome. So, I think for companies that are in product development that don't have industrial design integrated at that front end stage, I'd encourage you to consider that. That's my 2 cents.
So interesting. I don't want to add anything, just to let these amazing conclusions just to be there and close properly the session. Thank you very much, Melissa. Thank you very much, Herb. I enjoyed so much the conversation. I wish to keep this conversation going. So I hope that we can meet other time, and congratulations on the chapter.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And for everyone else, see you next week in our next edition of Open Innovation Thursday. Thank you very much.